Some stories find us when we least expect them. They arrive not with fanfare, but with a quiet moment, a glance out a kitchen window, a sound in the yard, a feeling that something is about to change. This is a story about second chances, about a woman who thought her purpose had passed her by, and a mother-to-be who had every reason to give up on people but chose to trust one more time. It's about the kind of love that asks for nothing in return, the kind that shows up in worn cardigans and cold suppers, in sleepless nights and whispered prayers. If you have ever felt invisible, or wondered if your best days were behind you, this story is for you. If you have ever opened your door to something broken and watched it become whole again, you will understand. Pull up a chair, stay a while. The dish slipped. Eleanor Miller caught it before it hit the sink, fingers closing around wet porcelain. Water dripped down her wrist, cold against the thin skin there. She had been washing the same plate for 3 minutes now, running the sponge in circles without seeing it. Outside the kitchen window, the October sun was dying. Cornfields stretched toward the horizon. Stubble fought in rust where the harvest had passed through. 3 weeks ago, the combine had come and gone. Now the land lay bare, waiting for winter. She reached for the towel. That was when she saw it. A shape at the far fence, dark against the fading light. Eleanor squinted. Her glasses were on the counter. She never wore them for dishes, but even without them, she could tell something was wrong with the picture. The shape was too low to be a deer, too still to be a coyote passing through. It was pressed against the ground, trembling. She set the plate in the rack, dried her hands slow, the way you do when you are trying to convince yourself there is no hurry. But her heart was already beating faster. The back door stuck like it always did in autumn, wood swollen with humidity. Eleanor shouldered it open and stepped onto the porch. The air hit her face cool, smelling of dry leaves and distant wood smoke from the Henderson place 2 miles east. She pulled Walter's cardigan tighter. It hung past her hips. Sleeves rolled twice at the wrists, 3 years since he passed, and she still had not moved it from the hook by the door. The shape had not moved. Eleanor walked down the porch steps, across the yard, past the tomato cages she had not bothered to take down this year. Her knees ached with each step. The grass was wet with evening dew, soaking through her house slippers. 50 yards, 40. Now she could see a dog, lying flat against the fence post, belly swollen tight as a drum. And those eyes, amber, ancient, locked onto Eleanor like she was the last thing in the world worth looking at. The dog did not bark, did not growl, did not run. It just watched her, shaking. Eleanor stopped walking. Her breath caught somewhere between her chest and her throat. Around the dog's neck, where fur should have been, was a ring of bare skin, pink and scarred, the unmistakable mark of a chain worn too tight for too long. And beneath that swollen belly, pressed into the cold October earth. Eleanor counted the outline of lives waiting to be born. If this story has already touched your heart, we would love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let us know where you are reading from today. Sometimes the smallest connections remind us we are never truly alone. Eleanor did not move closer. Not yet. She lowered herself onto the wet grass, knees popping like dry kindling. The cold soaked through her slacks immediately. But she stayed down, eye level, non-threatening. The dog's ribs jutted beneath matted fur, black and tan. The coloring said German Shepherd, but the body told a different story. Hip bones sharp as blades, spine visible through the coat, and that belly impossibly round on such a wasted frame. Skin stretched tight over the lives inside. 10 feet between them. The dog's ears flattened against her skull. Eleanor kept her hands on her thighs. Visible. Empty. Easy, girl. Her voice came out rusty. She had not spoken to another living thing since Tuesday, when she thanked the mail carrier for a package of coupons she would never use. The dog's nose twitched, testing the air, testing Eleanor. Wind picked up from the north, carrying the smell of rain still hours away. The weather report that morning had warned of a cold front, temperatures dropping into the 30s by tomorrow night. Eleanor had barely listened, stirring her coffee, watching the steam curl toward the ceiling of the kitchen where she and Walter had eaten 10,000 breakfasts together. The kitchen where she now ate alone. She pushed the thought aside, focused on the animal in front of her. The scarring around the neck was worse than she had first seen, not just bare skin grooves worn into the flesh itself, healed over in pale ridges, years of a chain pulled tight, years of circling the same few feet of dirt, wearing a path into the ground and into her own body. Eleanor's chest tightened. She had seen wounds like this before. Not on dogs, on the young mothers who came into St. Mary's with bruises they claimed were from falling downstairs, women who flinched when their husbands touched them, women whose eyes held the same flat wariness now staring back at her from 10 feet away. The dog shifted. A low sound escaped her throat. Not a growl. Something softer. A question. Eleanor stayed still. The last light bled out of the sky, stars beginning to prick through the purple overhead. And then she noticed what she had missed before. The dog's back legs were trembling. Not from cold. Not from fear. Rhythmic. Involuntary. The unmistakable tremor of a body beginning to contract. Eleanor's breath stopped in her chest. She knew that tremor. 35 years at St. Mary's. More than 2,000 deliveries. She had seen it in women gripping the bed rails. In teenagers, too scared to scream. In mothers who had done this 5 times before and knew exactly what was coming. The body preparing itself. Muscles beginning the ancient work. The dog's eyes squeezed shut. Her belly tightened, visible even through the matted fur, a wave rolling from spine to sternum. The contraction lasted maybe 15 seconds. Then her body relaxed, and those amber eyes opened again, fixed on Eleanor with something that looked almost like pleading. Eleanor's mind raced. The temperature was dropping. She could feel it on her face, her hands, the wet patches on her knees. By morning, it would be near freezing. A dog this malnourished, this weak, delivering pups in an open field, some of them would not survive, maybe none of them, maybe not the mother either. She needed to move. But one wrong step and the dog would bolt, or try to bolt. In her condition, she might not make it far. Might collapse in the cornfield where Eleanor would never find her in the dark. Slow. Everything slow. Eleanor shifted her weight. The dog's ears pricked forward, muscles tensed beneath the patchy coat. I know, girl. I know you got no reason to trust me. Her voice barely above a whisper, the kind of voice she used to use in the delivery room when everything was going wrong, and the only thing she could offer was calm. But I've been doing this a long time, longer than you've been alive. I expect another contraction. The dog's back legs stiffened, trembling harder now. A low whine escaped her throat. Not pain exactly, effort. The sound of a body working against its own exhaustion. Eleanor waited until it passed. I got a warm kitchen, clean towels, water. The dog's nose twitched. And I make a mean chicken and rice, if I do say so myself. Nothing fancy, but it'll fill your belly better than whatever you've been finding in these fields. She did not reach out, did not move closer, just sat there on the cold ground, talking to a stray dog like it was the most natural thing in the world. The stars were fully out now, Orion rising in the east, the way it always did this time of year. Walter used to point out the constellations when they sat on the porch after supper. She had not looked up at them since he passed. The dog shifted, front paws extending forward, testing. Eleanor held her breath. One step, then another, the swollen belly swaying with each movement. The dog stopped 3 feet away, close enough that Eleanor could smell her dirt. Old blood. The sour tang of an animal who had not been cared for in a very long time. Close enough to see the smaller scars now, on her muzzle, her ears, the places a boot or a belt would land. Eleanor's hands ached with the effort of keeping still. That's it. That's a good girl. The dog's nose stretched forward, cold and wet against Eleanor's knuckles. A sniff. Another. Then so gentle Eleanor almost missed it. A tongue flicked across her fingers. Something cracked open in Eleanor's chest. Something she had kept locked tight for 3 years, since the morning she woke up and Walter was cold beside her, and the house went silent in a way it had never been before. She did not cry, not yet. But her hand rose slowly, slowly, and came to rest on the dog's head, between the ears, where the fur was still soft. The dog did not flinch. "All right then," Eleanor said, and her voice broke just a little on the words. "Let's get you inside before those babies decide to come out here in the dark." She pushed herself up from the ground, every joint protesting. The dog watched her, uncertain. Eleanor turned and walked toward the house. Did not look back, did not call or whistle. She had made it halfway across the yard when she heard it. The soft pad of paws on grass. Following, she climbed the porch steps, opened the kitchen door. Warm light spilled out into the October night. And then she waited. The dog stood at the bottom of the steps, looking up at the open door, at Eleanor's silhouette against the light. 3 seconds. 5. The longest pause Eleanor had ever known. Then the dog placed one paw on the first step, then another. She crossed the threshold into the kitchen, her swollen belly brushing the doorframe as she passed. Eleanor closed the door behind them both. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the storm windows. Somewhere in the distance, old Jim Henderson's hounds began to howl at the rising moon. In the kitchen light, Eleanor saw everything. The dog stood in the center of the linoleum, legs splayed for balance, that enormous belly nearly brushing the floor. She was panting now, shallow and quick, tongue hanging past teeth that were worn down from chewing on chains or cages or whatever they had used to hold her. Eleanor did not move toward the cabinet, did not reach for a bowl. She just stood there, cataloging the damage the way she used to catalog injuries on the young mothers who came into St. Mary's emergency room at 2 in the morning. The scars around the neck were the worst she had seen those outside. But now she could see the others. A long ridge across the spine where fur refused to grow. Notches in both ears, one of them torn nearly in half and healed crooked. Pink patches on the muzzle where something had struck again and again, leaving the skin bare and shiny. And the ribs, every single one visible beneath the matted coat, rising and falling with each labored breath. "Lord have mercy," Eleanor whispered. The dog's ears swiveled toward her voice. Those amber eyes watching. Waiting, Eleanor moved slowly to the refrigerator, pulled out the container of leftover chicken from Sunday's dinner, the dinner she had made for herself, and eaten alone at the table where she and Walter used to sit across from each other every night for 47 years. She shredded the chicken into a bowl, added some cold rice from another container, set it on the floor 6 feet from where the dog stood. Then she stepped back and waited. The dog's nose worked, her body swayed forward, drawn by the smell, but her legs did not move. She was testing, checking for the trap, Eleanor lowered herself into one of the kitchen chairs. The wood creaked beneath her weight. "Go on now. Ain't nobody gonna take it from you." The dog took one step. Another. Her head dropped to the bowl. She ate like she had not eaten in weeks, which, Eleanor realized, she probably had not. The chicken and rice vanished in less than a minute, the bowl licked clean and pushed across the floor by a desperate tongue searching for more. Eleanor did not get up to refill it. Too much food, too fast, would make her sick. The dog looked up. Rice stuck to her muzzle, and despite everything, the exhaustion, the worry, the weight of 3 years of silence pressing down on her shoulders, Eleanor laughed. A dry sound. Rusty, but real. "Well, you got an appetite, don't you?" The dog's tail moved, just once, a small wag, almost involuntary. Eleanor's chest ached. She slid off the chair, lowering herself to the floor. Her knees cracked, her back protested. She ignored both. "Come here, girl. Let me take a look at you." The dog hesitated. Eleanor held out her hand, palm up, and waited. 10 seconds. 20. Then the dog walked forward and stood beside her, close enough to touch. Eleanor placed her hand on the swollen belly, felt the taut skin beneath the fur, the movement underneath, not one life, but many, shifting, pressing, preparing. She counted the shapes as best she could. 5 distinct lumps, maybe 6, maybe more. The dog stood perfectly still, watching Eleanor's face. "You're close, aren't you? Sweetheart, real close." Eleanor found the mammary glands, swollen tight, already leaking clear fluid. She had seen this 1,000 times in the delivery room, the body getting ready, preparing for what was coming whether the mother was ready or not. "A day," she said quietly. "Maybe 2. That's all you got." The dog's legs trembled, another contraction, milder than the ones outside but still visible a ripple across the belly. Muscles tightening and releasing. Eleanor sat back against the kitchen cabinet. The linoleum was cold through her slacks. She did not care. The dog looked at her. Those amber eyes, ancient and tired and carrying something Eleanor recognized. The look of a creature who had stopped hoping but could not quite stop trying. And then Bella, she was Bella now. The name arriving in Eleanor's mind fully formed and refusing to leave did something that made Eleanor's throat close up. She stepped forward, lowered her head, and rested it on Eleanor's thigh. The weight of it, the warmth, the absolute trust in that simple gesture. Eleanor's hand came up to rest between Bella's ears. The fur there was soft, untouched by scars. "Okay," she said, and her voice cracked on the word. "Okay, girl. We'll figure this out together." She reached up to the counter, fumbling for the phone, dialed the number she had memorized 30 years ago and never forgotten. It rang 4 times before a gruff voice answered. "Dawson Residence. Frank. It's Eleanor Miller. I know it's late, but I got a situation here." She could hear him shifting, probably sitting up in bed. Martha would be asleep beside him, the way Walter used to sleep beside Eleanor. What kind of situation? A dog, German Shepherd, pregnant, about to give birth any minute. She's in bad shape. Frank, real bad. Silence on the line. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. "Don't let her out of your sight." The line went dead. Eleanor set the phone down and looked at Bella, still resting against her leg. Those amber eyes half closed. "Help's coming," she whispered. "You just hold on." Bella's tail thumped once against the floor, outside. The wind howled around the corners of the old farmhouse, and somewhere in the distance, growing closer, Eleanor heard the sound of a truck engine on the gravel road. The headlights of Frank Dawson's pickup swept across the front yard at 8:15. Eleanor watched from the kitchen window, one hand resting on Bella's head. The dog had not moved from her spot on the floor, though her ears swiveled toward the sound of the truck door slamming. "Easy, girl. He's a friend. Been patching up animals in this county longer than you've been alive." 3 solid knocks on the back door. Eleanor opened it to Frank's weathered face, his medical bag hanging from one shoulder the way it had for 40 years. He wore the same canvas jacket he always wore, smelling of pipe tobacco and the liniment he used on his own bad knee. "Eleanor." He nodded once. His eyes moved past her to the dog lying on the old towel she had spread across the linoleum. "Well now, let's see what we got here." He moved slow, deliberate, the way a man learns to move around frightened animals after 4 decades of practice. Bella watched him cross the kitchen, every muscle coiled tight. But she did not growl, did not bare her teeth. Her eyes kept finding Eleanor, checking. Frank lowered himself to his knees with a grunt. His fingers probed gently along Bella's abdomen, her spine, her haunches. The dog held perfectly still. "German Shepherd, 3 years old, maybe 4? His voice stayed low, clinical. "Been through at least 2 litters before this one." Eleanor stood by the stove, arms crossed over her chest. "The pups from before, what do you think happened to them?" Frank's jaw tightened. "Sold, most likely backyard breeders. They keep the mothers till they're used up, then dump them somewhere nobody'll ask questions." His hands moved to Bella's neck, to the scarred ridge where fur refused to grow. "Seen it more times than I care to count. Somebody treated her like a thing for a long time." "That they did." Frank sat back on his heels, wiped his hands on his pants. "Some folks don't deserve dogs, Eleanor. Some folks don't deserve a lot of things." He continued his examination. Bella lay still throughout, her eyes never leaving Eleanor's face across the room. 6 pups, Frank said finally. "Maybe 7. She'll go sometime in the next day or 2. He reached into his bag, pulled out a stethoscope, listened to Bella's chest. "Heart strong. That's good. She's malnourished bad. Dehydrated too. But the instinct's strong in this breed. It'll carry her through if nothing goes sideways. And if something does go sideways," Frank met her eyes, "then you call me. Don't matter what time. I'll come." He reached into his bag again, pulled out a large sack of kibble. "Special formula for pregnant dogs. Had it sitting in my garage since I closed up the clinic last year, been waiting for someone who needed it." Eleanor took the bag, heavier than she expected. "What do I owe you?" Frank waved her off. "You don't owe me a thing. Walter would have done the same for any dog showed up at my place." He paused at the door, one hand on the frame. "How you been? Eleanor?" "Really? I'm fine." "That ain't what I asked." She did not answer. Frank studied her face for a long moment. Then he pulled his cap down against the night air. "Get some rest. You're gonna need it. And Eleanor," he hesitated. "Walter told me something once, toward the end. Said he worried about you. Said you'd never ask for help even if you were drowning." "Walter talked too much." "No." Frank's voice softened. "He just knew you. Same as I do." The truck's taillights disappeared down the gravel drive. Eleanor stood in the quiet kitchen, the bag of dog food in her arms, listening to the silence that had become her only companion these past 3 years. Bella whined softly from her spot on the floor. All right. Let's get you fed proper." She did not go upstairs that night. Instead, Eleanor settled into Walter's chair, the old recliner by the fireplace that still held the shape of his body in its worn leather cushions. She had not sat in it since he died, had walked past it 1,000 times, dusted around it, but never lowered herself into that familiar seat. Tonight, she did. Bella lay on a nest Eleanor had made from the patchwork quilt her mother had sewn 40 years ago. Squares of old dresses and work shirts stitched together with thread that had faded from red to pink. She had wrapped her own daughter in this blanket when Karen was born, had covered Walter with it during his last winter, when the cold seemed to settle into his bones no matter how high she turned the heat. Now it cushioned a stray dog on her kitchen floor. The radio played low on the counter, some station out of Indianapolis, old country songs from before country got loud and angry, Patsy Cline singing about falling to pieces. Walter used to hum along when they drove to Evansville for supplies, his fingers tapping the steering wheel, off-key and not caring one bit. Bella slept fitfully. Her legs twitched. Running in dreams? Running from what? Eleanor could only guess. The whimpers that escaped her throat were small. Involuntary, the sounds of a creature whose body remembered things her waking mind tried to forget. Each time. Eleanor reached down from the chair and let her fingers rest on Bella's head until the trembling stopped. Shh. Ain't nobody gonna hurt you no more. Outside, wind rattled the storm windows, the temperature dropping like the weatherman promised. Eleanor pulled the Afghan across her lap and watched the dog sleep. At some point, her own eyes closed. The phone rang at 7:15 in the morning. Eleanor startled awake, neck stiff from sleeping upright. Gray light filtered through the kitchen windows. Bella was standing now, alert, watching Eleanor cross to the counter where the old phone sat. "Mom, I got your message. What's this about a dog?" Karen's voice came through tinny and rushed. Behind it, the familiar sounds of Chicago traffic, horns, a siren wailing past. "She's pregnant. Karen. Gonna give birth any time now." Silence on the line. "Mom, you can't, are you sure you can handle this? You're out there all alone, and German shepherds can be aggressive. If she's a stray, she's not mean. Karen, she's scared out of her mind. There's a difference." More silence. The siren fading into the distance. "I just worry about you." Worry. Eleanor heard the edge in her own voice but could not stop it. "You call once a month and you worry. That's not fair. Mom, isn't it?" Karen's breathing changed, sharper. The way it got when she was trying not to cry or trying not to yell, Eleanor had never been able to tell the difference. "I've tried, Mom. I've tried to come visit. Every time. You say don't bother. Every time. You tell me you're fine. A long exhale. Never mind. Just be careful. Okay, I'll try to call this weekend." The line went dead. Eleanor stood with the receiver still pressed to her ear, listening to the dial tone. Bella patted across the kitchen and pressed her nose against Eleanor's free hand. Warm and wet. "Don't look at me like that." Eleanor's voice came out rougher than she intended. "Daughters are complicated. You got 7 coming. You'll learn soon enough." Bella's tongue flicked across her knuckles. And despite everything, the sleepless night, the ache in her neck, the hollow feeling Karen's words had left in her chest, Eleanor laughed, a dry sound, rusty from disuse, but real. "Well, at least somebody around here appreciates me." She filled Bella's bowl with the special kibble Frank had left, watched the dog eat, slower this time, less desperate. Then she put on the coffee and stood at the window, watching the sun climb above the cornfields. The cold front had arrived overnight. Frost glittered on the grass. The tomato cages she had not taken down were rimmed with white. She should eat something, should shower, change out of yesterday's clothes, should do any of the 100 small things that made up a day when you were living alone and no one was watching. Instead, she sat back down in Walter's chair, let her hand rest on Bella's head. The dog's belly was tight, tighter than yesterday, and as Eleanor watched, she saw it a ripple across the stretched skin, a contraction, stronger than the ones before. Bella's eyes found hers, wide, knowing it was time. The second night, just past 11, Eleanor had dozed in Walter's chair, the radio playing low, when Bella's whine cut through her sleep. Not a dream whine this time. Something deeper, more urgent. She pushed herself upright, fumbling for the lamp. Light flooded the kitchen. Bella stood in the center of the patchwork quilt, her back legs trembling, her sides heaving with each breath. Fluid had pooled beneath her, soaking into the fabric. Her eyes found Eleanor's face and held there. Wide. Desperate. "Okay, sweetheart, okay. I'm here." Eleanor crossed the kitchen in 4 steps, lowered herself to the floor beside the dog, her knees screaming against the cold linoleum. She reached for the phone on the counter, dialed Frank's number. It rang, and rang, and rang. The machine picked up. His gruff voice asking callers to leave a message. "Frank, it's Eleanor. She's in labor. I could use a hand if you get this." She hung up, looked at Bella. "All right, Mama. Looks like it's just you and me." Eleanor gathered what she needed: clean towels from the hall closet, a bowl of warm water, the kitchen scissors, wiped down with rubbing alcohol, dental floss from the bathroom cabinet, in case Bella could not manage the cords herself. 35 years of deliveries. She had done this in hospital rooms with monitors beeping and doctors barking orders. She had done it in farmhouse bedrooms with nothing but her hands and a prayer. She had done it once in the back of a pickup truck on the shoulder of Route 46, a 19-year-old girl screaming that she could not do this. Could not. Could not. And Eleanor's voice cutting through the panic, "Yes, you can. You already are. Just breathe." She could do it again. Bella circled the quilt, pawing at the fabric, nesting. Her breath came in short, sharp pants, tongue hanging, saliva dripping. Eleanor settled on the floor, her back against the cabinet. A folded towel beneath her knees. She had learned that lesson already. Close enough to help, far enough to let nature work. "Lord willing," she murmured, "we'll get through this together." The first puppy came just before midnight. Eleanor saw the bulge appear, watched Bella strain and push, hindquarters tensing with effort. A wet, dark shape emerged, still wrapped in its sack, motionless. Bella twisted around immediately. Her teeth tore the membrane. Her tongue worked frantically over the tiny body, clearing airways, stimulating breath. A thin, reedy cry filled the kitchen. The puppy squirmed, black and tan, no bigger than Eleanor's fist. Bella nudged it toward her belly. The puppy latched on, suckling with blind determination. 1. Eleanor let out a breath she had not known she was holding. The second came at 12:47. Bella handled it the same way, efficient, instinctive, her exhaustion pushed aside by something older than tiredness. 2. The third at 1:35, the fourth at 2:20, the fifth at 3:15. Eleanor lost track of everything except the rhythm of labor. Her back ached from sitting on the hard floor. Her knees throbbed despite the towel. She shifted position every 20 minutes, trying to keep the blood flowing, but at 72 years old there was only so much her body would tolerate. 5 puppies now, lined up along Bella's belly, wriggling, feeding, alive. But Bella was flagging. Her head dropped to the quilt between contractions. Her eyes, when they found Eleanor's face, had lost their sharpness, glazed with exhaustion. Her tongue hung limp, no longer pink, but pale at the edges. "Come on, girl, you're doing so good. Keep going." The sixth puppy came at 4:10. Smaller than the others, Bella's movements were slower now, her licking mechanical rather than urgent. But she got the job done. The puppy cried. The puppy nursed. 6. Eleanor's shoulders loosened slightly. Maybe that was all. Maybe Bella's body seized. Another contraction. Stronger than before. The dog's back arched. Her legs stiffening, a sound escaping her throat that was half whine, half groan. Eleanor leaned forward, watched. Nothing happened. The contraction passed. Bella lay panting, sides heaving. Another contraction. Still nothing. "Come on, sweetheart, one more. You can do this." Bella strained, her whole body trembling with the effort. Eleanor could see the bulge now, pressing against the birth canal but not moving. Stuck. She had seen this before. In women, in the delivery room at 3 in the morning when everything that could go wrong did. Eleanor reached forward. Her fingers found the puppy's head tiny, slick, wedged at an angle. "Easy, girl, easy. I'm gonna help." She waited for the next contraction. When it came, she guided, rotated, eased. The 7th puppy slid free at 5:28 in the morning. It did not move. Bella's head stayed down, her sides heaving. Too tired to turn around. Too spent to do what needed to be done. Eleanor's hands moved without thought. She scooped up the tiny body warm, wet, impossibly small, and tore the sack with her fingernails. Cleared the mouth with her pinky finger. Rubbed the chest with the corner of a towel. Nothing. The puppy lay limp in her palms, a smear of dark fur. Closed eyes. Still. "Come on, little one." She tilted it head down the way she had done with human babies who came out blue and silent. Patted the back. Rubbed harder along the rib cage. 5 seconds. 10. The kitchen went quiet except for the soft sounds of the other puppies nursing. "Please." She did not know who she was asking. 15 seconds. The puppy twitched. A tiny cough. A gasp. Then a cry, weak and thready, but unmistakably alive. Eleanor's hands shook as she placed the 7th puppy beside its siblings. It rooted blindly, found a spot, began to nurse. "That's it?" Her voice broke. "That's my girl." Dawn crept through the kitchen windows. Eleanor sat with her back against the cabinet, every joint in her body on fire. Her slacks were ruined. Her hands smelled of copper and birth and wet fur. She had not eaten in 18 hours, had not slept in 30. But 7 puppies lined Bella's belly, 7 chests rising and falling. 7 tiny mouths working. Bella lay on her side, eyes half closed, but watchful, counting, making sure they were all there, all breathing, all safe. Then she did something Eleanor would never forget. She lifted her head, looked at Eleanor with those amber eyes exhausted, empty, grateful, and she crawled forward. Not far, just enough to rest her muzzle on Eleanor's thigh, the weight of it, the warmth, the absolute trust in that simple gesture. Eleanor's hand came up to stroke the space between Bella's ears. The fur there was soft, untouched by scars. "Good job, Mama." Her voice cracked on the words. She sat there as the sun rose higher, painting the kitchen gold and pink. The radio had gone silent hours ago. The only sounds now were the puppy's soft suckling and Bella's slow, steady breathing. For the first time in 3 years, the house did not feel empty. For the first time since Walter passed, Eleanor did not feel alone. She let her head fall back against the cabinet, closed her eyes, let the exhaustion take her. She was almost asleep when the phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the quiet. Bella's head lifted from Eleanor's lap. Eleanor pushed herself up, bones screaming, and reached for the receiver. "Hello? Mrs. Miller? A woman's voice. Official. Clipped. This is Linda Hendricks from Millbrook Animal Control. We received a report about a stray dog on your property, a German Shepherd. Possibly dangerous. A pause. We'll need to send someone out to assess the situation. Eleanor's hand tightened on the receiver. Report? Who filed a report? I'm not at liberty to disclose that information, ma'am, but we take all calls seriously, especially regarding potentially aggressive strays. Someone will be out within the next 48 hours to assess. The line went dead. Eleanor stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, listening to the dial tone. Her reflection stared back from the dark window above the sink hair wild. Face gray with exhaustion. Clothes stained with fluids she did not want to examine. She looked like a madwoman. Maybe she was. Bella whined from the quilt. 7 puppies squirmed against her belly. Frank arrived at 9, apologizing for missing her call. He examined Bella and the puppies, pronounced them healthy, then turned to Eleanor with a look she did not like. When's the last time you ate something? I'm fine. When's the last time you slept in a bed? Changed your clothes? He gestured at her stained slacks, her tangled hair. Eleanor, you look like something the cat dragged in. Thank you. Frank, always a pleasure. He did not smile. Sit down. I don't need to. Sit down. She sat, not because he told her to, but because her legs would not hold her anymore. Frank lowered himself into the chair across from her. His eyes were tired, kind. The eyes of a man who had known her for 30 years and was about to say something she did not want to hear. I've been thinking about what I said last night. About Walter worrying. He rubbed his jaw. There's more to it than that. Frank, let me finish. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. Last time I saw Walter, we were sitting on your porch. Week before he passed, he knew it was coming. Could feel it in his bones. He said... Frank paused. He wasn't scared of dying. Eleanor, he was scared of leaving you alone, because he knew you'd wall yourself off from everyone who tried to help. That's not... He said you'd push Karen away. Said you'd convince yourself you didn't need anyone. Said you'd rather drown than admit you were drowning. Frank's voice softened. And here you are, 3 years later, sitting in a kitchen that smells like dog and blood, wearing yesterday's clothes, telling me you're fine. Eleanor's throat closed. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. When's the last time Karen visited? Silence. When's the last time you let her visit? The question hit like a slap. She's busy. Work. The city. That's not what I asked. Eleanor looked at her hands, the nails bitten short, the liver spots she tried not to notice. The hands that had delivered 2,000 babies, but could not hold on to her own daughter. I don't remember, she whispered. Frank nodded slowly. That's what I thought. The phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. Eleanor almost did not answer. She was sitting in Walter's chair, staring at nothing, Frank's words echoing in her skull. But her hand moved on instinct. Mom, Karen's voice. Thick. Strange. Karen, what's wrong? I've been thinking about what you said this morning, about me only calling once a month. A shaky breath. And you're right, I haven't been there for you. But Mom, her voice cracked. Neither have you. Eleanor's grip tightened on the phone. What's that supposed to mean? It means every time I tried to visit, you told me not to bother. Every time I offered to help, you said you were fine. Every time I reached out, you shut the door in my face. That's not true. Isn't it? Karen's voice rose. Remember last Thanksgiving I had tickets booked. Called to tell you. And you said... She broke off. You said, don't waste your money. Karen said you'd rather be alone than have me fussing around. The memory surfaced, sharp, clear, standing in this same kitchen, Phone cord wrapped around her fingers, Karen's voice bright with excitement, and her own voice flat and cold. "Don't bother, I'll be fine on my own." "And Christmas," Karen continued, "and we offered to pick you up, drive you to Chicago. You said you weren't leaving that house. Said Dad would never forgive you if you spent the holiday somewhere else." Eleanor's stomach turned. "The birthday card I sent in March, you never acknowledged it. I called a week later, and you said I should have called instead of hiding behind a piece of paper." The card, pink envelope, Karen's loopy handwriting. Eleanor had left it on the counter for 3 days, then thrown it away. "I've been trying. Mom, for 3 years, I've been trying to reach you, and every single time, you make me feel like I'm doing it wrong. Like nothing I do is enough. Like I'm—" Karen's breath hitched. "Like I'm the one who abandoned you. When all along, you've been pushing me out the door." Eleanor could not speak. The silence stretched. Seconds. An eternity. "I didn't call to fight," Karen said finally, her voice small and tired. "I called because I love you, even when you make it so hard. I just needed you to know that—" The line went dead. Eleanor sat in the quiet kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, listening to nothing. Bella lifted her head from the quilt, those amber eyes watching, and something inside Eleanor cracked open. Not gently, not gradually. It split down the middle like rotten wood, exposing everything she had hidden from herself for 3 years. Every time Karen reached out, every time she slapped that hand away, every holiday declined, every phone call cut short, every moment her daughter tried to love her, met with coldness, because coldness was easier than needing someone, easier than risking disappointment, easier than admitting she was drowning. She had blamed Karen for abandoning her, but Eleanor was the one who built the walls, brick by brick, year by year, telling herself she was being strong, independent, a woman who needed no one. She had not been strong. She had been a coward. The realization hit like a fist to the chest. Her vision blurred. Her hands shook. She slid from the chair to the floor, knees cracking against the linoleum, and for the first time since Walter's funeral, Eleanor Miller wept. Not quiet tears, not dignified grief. Ugly, gasping sobs that tore from her throat like something dying, shoulders heaving, hands pressed to her face. The sound of a woman who had finally seen herself clearly and could not bear the sight. Bella rose from the quilt, crossed the kitchen on unsteady legs, her puppies mewling at the loss of warmth. She lay down beside Eleanor, pressed her body against the old woman's shaking form, and stayed. Eleanor did not know how long she lay on the kitchen floor. The light shifted through the windows, morning brightness fading to the gray of afternoon clouds. The puppies nursed and slept and nursed again. Bella stayed pressed against her side, warm and patient, breathing slow and steady. At some point, Eleanor's tears ran dry, her throat raw, her eyes swollen shut. She felt hollowed out, like someone had reached inside her chest and scraped away everything she thought she knew about herself. She pushed herself up to sitting. Her back screamed, her knees throbbed. The linoleum had left red marks on her cheek. Bella watched her, those amber eyes steady, patient, not judging, just present. "You must think I'm a fool," Eleanor said. Her voice came out like gravel, barely recognizable. Bella's tail moved, once, twice. Eleanor looked at the dog, really looked, at the scars around her neck, the marks on her muzzle, the places where cruelty had written its signature across her body in permanent ink. This creature had every reason to hate, every reason to bite and snarl and run from human hands forever. She had been chained, beaten, used up and thrown away like garbage on the side of a road. But when Eleanor reached out her hand in that field, Bella did not run. She stepped forward, she crossed the threshold. She chose to trust one more time. Eleanor's hand found Bella's head, the soft fur between the ears. "How'd you do it?" she whispered. "How'd you let someone in after all that?" Bella had no answer, just the rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her body, the quiet presence of a creature who had learned that survival sometimes means taking a chance on something uncertain. Night fell. Eleanor did not move to the bedroom. She sat on the floor beside Bella and the puppies, the patchwork quilt bunched beneath them, watching the small bodies rise and fall with each breath. The seventh one, the fighter, the one she had almost lost, was nursing stronger than any of the others now, pushing its siblings aside, demanding its place. The kitchen was dark except for the light above the stove, the radio silent. The only sounds were the puppy's soft suckling and the wind outside, rattling the storm windows. Eleanor thought about walls. She had built hers out of silence and distance and the word fine, out of declined invitations and unreturned calls and birthday cards thrown in the trash. She had told herself the walls were protection, that they kept the pain out, that needing no one was the same as being strong. But walls keep everything out, the bad and the good, the hurt and the healing, the loneliness and the love. Bella had walls too, once, built from chains and boots and years of cruelty. But when Eleanor opened the door, she walked through. Maybe that was the only choice that mattered. Dawn came slowly, gray light seeping through the curtains. Eleanor had not slept. Her body ached in places she had forgotten existed, but her mind was clear, clearer than it had been in 3 years. She looked at the phone on the counter. She could leave things as they were, let the silence stretch, let Karen believe her mother was too proud, too stubborn, too broken to change. It would be easier, familiar, safe behind her walls. But Bella had walked through the door. Eleanor pushed herself up from the floor, crossed the kitchen on legs that did not want to hold her, picked up the receiver. She dialed Karen's number, each digit slow and deliberate. It rang, once, twice, 3 times. "Hello," Karen's voice, thick with sleep, the sound of someone who had not slept well either. "Karen, it's Mom." Silence on the line. "I need to say something. The whole thing. Don't interrupt." She heard Karen's breath catch. A small sound of surprise. Then, "All right?" Eleanor closed her eyes. The words came hard, dragged up from somewhere deep in her chest where she had buried them for 3 years. "I've been pushing you away, not because I don't love you, because I didn't know how to need anyone after your father died." Her voice cracked. She pushed through. "I thought if I didn't need you, it wouldn't hurt so much when you weren't here. Figured if I kept everyone at arm's length, I could survive on my own. The way I always have." Bella moved closer. Her nose touched Eleanor's ankle. "But it hurts anyway, every day. And I see now what I've been doing. Every time you reached out, I shut the door. You wanted to visit. I said don't bother. You tried to help. I told you I was fine. You sent that birthday card." Eleanor's throat closed. She forced herself to continue. "I threw it away. Karen. Didn't even call to say thank you. Because I was angry you didn't call instead. Because I made up rules in my head about how you should love me. And when you didn't follow them, I punished you for it." Tears again. She thought she had cried herself empty. But there were more. "I blamed you for not being here. But every time you tried to be here, I pushed you away, told myself I was being strong, independent." Her voice dropped to a whisper. But I wasn't strong. I was scared. She slid down the cabinet to the floor, phone cord stretching. Scared that if I let you in, you'd leave like your father did. Scared that needing someone means losing them eventually. So I made sure I never needed anyone. Made sure no one could hurt me when they were gone. Karen was crying now. Eleanor could hear it, the shaky breaths. The small sounds of grief held too long. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wasted 3 years pushing you away because I was too scared to let you in. The words hung in the air. Eleanor had nothing left. She sat on the cold floor, phone pressed to her ear, waiting. Mom, Karen's voice came out broken, raw. I didn't know. I thought you just didn't want me around. I always wanted you around. I just didn't know how to say it. Didn't know how to ask. Silence, long and heavy with 3 years of distance. There's a dog here, Eleanor said. Showed up a few days ago, pregnant, half-starved, covered in scars. Somebody hurt her bad, for years, had every reason to run from me. She looked at Bella, curled on the floor, her puppies sleeping against her belly. But when I reached out my hand, she didn't run. She stepped forward, came inside. Let me help her bring 7 puppies into the world. Eleanor wiped her face with the back of her hand. If a dog hurt that bad can still take a chance on somebody, what's my excuse? Karen's breath shuddered through the phone. I ain't asking you to drop everything. Ain't asking you to forgive 3 years of me being a stubborn old fool. But maybe you could come visit. Not because I need taking care of, because I miss you. And I want to try. Silence. Then, very quietly. I'll book a flight. This weekend. Eleanor's chest heaved. Okay. And Mom. Yeah. Thank you. For calling. For finally letting me in. Neither of them hung up. Just breathing together across 400 miles. The next morning, Eleanor woke in Walter's chair with weak sunlight streaming through the windows. Bella stood by the back door, tail wagging slowly. The first real wag Eleanor had seen from her. Need to go out. Girl. She opened the door. Bella stepped onto the porch, stretched, looked back. The yard was bright with frost. Red and gold leaves scattered across the grass, the bare cornfields waiting for winter. Eleanor followed her outside. The morning air sharp and cold against her face. She lowered herself into the old rocker, the one where she and Walter used to sit, watching the stars come out. Bella lay at her feet. Karen was coming. In 4 days, her daughter would walk through that door. They would have to learn each other again. It would not be easy, would not be quick. But Bella had walked through the door, and now so had Eleanor. She was rocking gently in the morning sun, half asleep, when gravel crunched in the driveway. A white van with county markings pulled up to the house. Blue letters on the side, Millbrook Animal Control. Eleanor rose from the rocker. Her knees protested, but she ignored them. A young woman climbed out of the van, clipboard in hand. Uniform too crisp, too new. Mrs. Miller, I'm Sarah Mitchell from Animal Control. We received a report. I know what you received. Eleanor stepped to the edge of the porch. Bella pressed against her leg, body tense, but quiet. And I'm telling you right now, that dog is not dangerous. She's a nursing mother with 7 puppies inside my house. The young woman's eyes widened. She glanced at her clipboard, then back at Eleanor. Ma'am, we still need to assess. Assess what? Frank's voice cut across the yard. His pickup had pulled in behind the animal control van. He climbed out, moving with the deliberate pace of a man who had dealt with bureaucracy his entire career. Frank Dawson, retired veterinarian, 40 years in this county. He extended his hand. "I've been treating that dog since she arrived." Sarah Mitchell shook it, uncertain. "She's malnourished, scarred from years of abuse, and just delivered 7 healthy pups." Frank pulled a folded paper from his jacket. "Here's my examination report, dated and signed. That dog poses no threat to anyone." Sarah took the paper, read it slowly, looked at Bella sitting calm and quiet at Eleanor's feet. "I'll need to see the puppies. Document their condition." "Come inside," Eleanor said. "But you walk slow and keep your voice down." 3 weeks later, Karen's rental car pulled into the driveway. Eleanor stood on the porch, hands clasped in front of her. The November air had turned sharp, breath visible in small white clouds. She wore Walter's cardigan, washed now, but still carrying the faint ghost of him in its fibers. Bella sat beside her, tail sweeping the porch boards. The car door opened. Karen stepped out. She looked tired, lines around her eyes that had not been there 2 years ago. Gray threading through her dark hair. But she was here. She had come. They stood looking at each other across 20 feet of gravel. Eleanor's throat tightened. All the words she had rehearsed, all the things she wanted to say, they jammed together in her chest, too big to fit through her mouth. Karen took a step forward, then another. Bella rose and padded down the porch steps. Her tail wagged as she approached Karen, nose stretching out to investigate. Karen laughed. A wet sound. Half sob. She knelt and let Bella sniff her hands. "She's beautiful. Mom." "She picked me." Eleanor descended the steps slowly, still trying to figure out why. Karen looked up, her eyes bright. Maybe she saw something worth trusting. Eleanor reached her daughter, close enough to see the freckles across her nose, the ones she had counted when Karen was a baby in her arms. Maybe she's just got bad judgment. Eleanor's voice cracked. "Lord knows I do." Karen laughed again. Then she was standing, and her arms were around Eleanor, and Eleanor was holding her daughter for the first time in 2 years. They stood there in the driveway, not speaking, just holding on. Dinner that night was meatloaf, Eleanor's mother's recipe, the one Karen had loved as a child. The kitchen table had 2 place settings for the first time in 3 years, both plates full, both being used. 7 puppies tumbled around under the table, eyes open now, legs sturdy enough to carry them on small adventures across the floor. Bella lay beside Eleanor's chair, watching her children explore. "You delivered puppies at 72. Mom!" "Honey, I've delivered harder things than puppies." Eleanor cut into her meatloaf. "You, for instance, 36 hours. Karen shook her head. "You're never gonna let me forget that. Are you?" "Not a chance." They ate in comfortable silence. The radio played soft oldies from the counter. The puppies squeaked and wrestled beneath them. Karen reached down to pet the smallest one, the 7th. The fighter. "What are you going to do with them all?" "Frank knows some families looking for dogs. Good people." Eleanor paused. "I'll keep Bella, of course, and the little one there." Karen smiled. "She's got spirit." "She does. Takes after her mama." That night, Karen slept in her old room, the bed still made with the same quilt from her teenage years. Eleanor sat in Walter's chair, Bella at her feet. The smallest puppy curled in her lap, warm weight against her stomach. The house creaked and settled around her. Familiar sounds, but different now. Not empty. Outside. The moon rose over the harvested fields. Stars scattered across the sky. Eleanor closed her eyes. She thought about doors, about the choice to step through or stay frozen on the threshold. Nothing was fixed. The road ahead would have stumbles and setbacks and days when the old walls tried to rebuild themselves. But Karen was sleeping upstairs. Bella was breathing at her feet. 7 new lives had filled this house with noise and warmth and chaos. For now, that was enough. For now, Eleanor Miller was not alone, and that was more than she had let herself hope for in a very long time. If something in this story felt familiar, you are not imagining it. Many of us have stood at a window, watching the light fade, wondering if the phone will ring. Some of us have said words we did not mean, or worse. Left unsaid, the words we should have spoken. Perhaps you know what it is to love someone and still push them away. Perhaps you know the weight of an empty chair at the table. The sound of a house gone too quiet. These are not failures. They are simply the places where life has pressed against us and left its mark. Eleanor found her way back. Not because she was brave, because she grew tired of being alone more than she was afraid of being hurt. Some doors stay closed for years. And sometimes, on an ordinary afternoon, we find the courage to reach for the handle. It is all right if this story stirred something you have been carrying quietly. It is all right if it stays with you for a while. Not everything needs to be resolved. Some things just need to be held gently until we are ready to set them down. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening